So I know some of you guys probably saw this title and you were sitting there like,
this is a fake video?
nah, I'm being for real. I know some of you guys saw that video I made about Steve Keim in the offseason, and you know, it really hasn't looked too great on my end. I will say though that I have been saying for the entire year that I really love the moves he's made this offseason. It's just some of the moves he made in the past were questionable, and as soon as he let Pat P walk for absolutely nothing, I decided to make it. But the timing of that video couldn't be any worse, as now we look like legit Super Bowl contenders, and with the roster he built and the players he drafted this year, he flat out constructed the best team in the NFL right now. So you know, I just gotta take the L on this one and give Thanos his props. But when you look at some of the moves that Steve Keim made during the draft, in the offseason, and even during the season, it's actually kinda crazy how good he's been. Steve Keim has made great move after great move this year, and it's safe to say he's going all in. I mean, Steve Keim is making move after move to make sure this team stays a contender. Like when Max Williams went down with his season-ending injury, he immediately went out there and traded for Pro Bowl tight end Zach Ertz. And I mean, we've seen how that's turned out for us. So far in his short tenure, Zach Ertz recorded his longest touchdown ever, and in his last game against the Seattle Seahawks, he had 8 receptions for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I mean, he also had this moment with the Seahawks fan where he almost spiked the ball in his face. Kind of funny if you ask me, but if you look at the Seahawks fan, he looks absolutely petrified. And the crazy thing is, that's just one of the moves he's made. He's made many more, and I saw this tweet by Jeff Kerr on Twitter, and it basically talked about everything he's done and all the moves he's made this season to make us a successful organization. And I'm telling you, when you look at all of these names, literally everybody has contributed in a huge way, which is why I feel like Steve Keim is the lead runaway for Executive of the Year. I mean, let's take a look at the list. So the first player we're going to talk about that he brought in is Rodney Hudson. I mean, when your starting center is Mason Cole and you're able to upgrade to Rodney Hudson, that is probably one of the biggest W's you could ever have in your entire life, straight up. And when you take into consideration what we traded to get him, it makes it that much better. The Raiders traded us Rodney Hudson in a 7th rounder in exchange for our 3rd round pick. Debatably the best center in the league for a 3rd round pick. I'll gladly take that. And what makes this even better is that the Cardinals extended him as soon as the trade got done. And on top of that, he only counts as $2.86 million against our salary this year. That's nuts. And then we go back to the list and look at the second one, and it's trading for Zach Ertz, which we already touched on a little bit. But Zach Ertz has been huge for us so far. If we didn't go out there and trade for Zach, our starting tight end right now would be Darrell Daniels. So it's safe to say Steve Keim knew that we needed to address the position, and he went out and got one of the best tight ends in the game. And when I say best in the game, I mean best available, because I mean, obviously he's not George Kittle, Travis Kelce-esque, but he's a former Pro Bowl tight end who in my opinion is still top 5. And then we look at the third point on the list that he signed AJ Green and JJ Watt, and both of those players were great for us. The only problem is JJ Watt got hurt and we don't know if he's gonna be back. Wow, my voice just cracked like crazy. But Steve Keim did come out and say he didn't tear his bicep and that the injury wasn't as bad as he previously thought. He also said that he's not gonna rule out a potential return this season, and if he does return, I'd personally expect him around playoff time, but just hearing that is great news for us. JJ Watt was huge for our run defense all season, and as soon as he went down, we struggled a little bit, but it seems like we're starting to pick back up. JJ Watt's presence on the field alone is terrifying for other offenses, so if he comes back, this defense is only gonna get better. And I mean, what's crazy is JJ Watt came back off a torn pec and got a sack like, what, 6 weeks later? Like, the guy is a superhuman. I'm not gonna rule out a return. And then going to the AJ Green signing, AJ Green has been a phenomenal outside receiver for us all season long. So far this year, he has 34 receptions for 538 yards and 3 touchdowns. But if you ask most Cardinals fans about their opinions on AJ Green, they will be deterred by this one play right here. There's still so many people who are upset about it, but I mean, it's one play. We gotta move on. If this happens in the playoffs though, you have every right to be mad, but it was a regular season game and it was one mistake. Mistakes happen. One mess up isn't gonna deter your entire season. And so far, he's been balling. People were saying that he was washed when the Cardinals signed him, that he didn't have anything left, but oh, has he proved them wrong. Put AJ Green alongside DeAndre Hopkins and good things happen. I mean, we've seen that all year long, from contested catches to being a red zone threat. AJ Green's done it all for us this season, and this was an amazing signing. And then we go to the fourth point on the list that he also signed James Conner and Colt McCoy. And we'll start with James Conner. James Conner came to the Cardinals just to be a power back and a backup to Chase Edmonds. But this season, he has 12 total touchdowns, which actually leads the league. Before the season started, people told me that James Conner was washed and I shouldn't be hyped about it. But if you really paid attention, James Conner was playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in the league. You know, he had decent stats, but I never expected him to be the Pro Bowl running back that he once was. But this season, he has 12 touchdowns and 555 yards, which in my opinion as a backup running back is pretty good. And then we look at Colt McCoy, who wasn't really expected to play, but was here to come and mentor Kyler Murray a little bit. But Kyler Murray goes down with an injury and Colt McCoy steps up big and goes 2-1 in those games. He beat the division rival 49ers and Seattle Seahawks, and the one game they lost was to the Carolina Panthers, who have a borderline elite defense. I've been saying it, but Colt McCoy as a backup quarterback has been levels ahead of what I thought he was going to be, and I could honestly say the same thing about James Conner. Both of these players right here have elevated their games big time, and they are big reasons of why we are currently 9-2. And these next two on the list aren't really more of what he did, it's more of what he didn't do. So there were rumors going around that Chandler Jones was expected to be traded from the Cardinals, and well, that just didn't happen. The Cardinals had no plans of trading him at all because obviously he's our best defensive player, if not second. And Steve Keim knew they were competing for a Super Bowl, so obviously he had to keep him on the roster. Like, what's the point in trading one of the best edge rushers in the league? This was all contract related anyways, and I mean, Chandler Jones walked up to Steve Keim after that 5-sack game against Tennessee and patted him on the pockets. So after the year's over, I'm expecting a payday. That's all I'm gonna say. And going to the Jordan Hicks situation, I mean, Steve Keim basically flat out told him on draft day when they took Zaven Collins to go look for a trade because he's not going to get any playing time. Fast forward to the beginning of the season and Jordan Hicks is still on the roster, and not only that, but he's our starting inside linebacker. And I mean, he's actually having a pretty solid season as well. He has 82 combined tackles and 3 total sacks. Not bad for a guy who was told he's not going to play and that he needs to seek a trade. But thankfully, both of these guys are still in the roster because they are huge contributors to this team, and Steve Keim ultimately made the right decision in keeping both of them. And looking at the 6th and final point on this list, Steve Keim also drafted Rondale Moore and Zaven Collins. Rondale Moore has been a huge part in Cliff Kingsbury's offense so far. Whether it's off jet sweeps, screen passes, Rondale Moore's electric. He's been the perfect receiver for Cliff, and in my opinion, he's been a super underrated piece of this offense. And when you look at Zaven Collins, I'm still not completely sold on him, and at the moment, he's not getting a ton of reps right now, but you can't look at that and call him a bust. I mean, he's a rookie, so he's not going to be fully developed in year 1, so we got to give it time and let it see how it pans out, but he did get hurt, and Vance Joseph did mention that as a reason of why he hasn't been playing as much, because I mean, Isaiah Simmons didn't really play in year 1, and in year 2 he sprouted, so maybe the same thing happens with Zaven Collins, I don't know. But then you could also look at this mini point that he had, and he said he didn't even mention Robert Alford or Marco Wilson either, or even Jalen Thompson. Those 3 people right there have been super underrated all season as well, and Robert Alford came off 2 major surgeries, and he's still performing at a very high level. That normally doesn't happen. And then when you take into consideration that Marco Wilson was a 4th round draft pick and he's balling out the way he is, that's unheard of. And Jalen Thompson is one of the game's most underrated safeties, and in my opinion, he should be a Pro Bowler this year. So at the end of the day, Steve Keim, you have done a tremendous job this season, and for that, you deserve Executive of the Year. It's as simple as that. I know a lot of you guys probably didn't expect me to give Steve Keim his flowers, but when you truly look into the things he's done this season, you gotta give props where props is due, and Steve Keim, you did a great job at building this team, I can't even lie. But with that being said, that's pretty much gonna wrap up today's video. If you guys did enjoy, consider hitting that subscribe button. I post NFL and NBA content, so if you're a fan of either of those or both of those, this is the perfect channel for you. And if you guys agree with me and think Steve Keim deserves to be Executive of the Year, go down to the comment section below and type Steve Keim EOY. I mean, or you could type it all out, it's up to you. But if you agree with me, make sure to type it down in the comment section below. But like I said, that's all I got for today's video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. It's been your boy Mythic. Peace out.